Summer's around the corner, and if not yet, you will soon start to get hounded by every single fitness coach online telling you that you have to start losing weight ASAP. And maybe you've already signed up for an 8-week summer shred, and I'm not going to judge you for that. However, maybe you've done one in the past, maybe you've done multiple of them in the past, and now this is the year that you're starting to question it and go, if these things actually worked, why can I not maintain the weight that I lost in the first place? Why do I have to keep doing summer shred after summer shred after summer shred? Wouldn't it be better if you could actually lose weight and maintain it? Well, if that's you, and if this summer you're thinking, is there a better way to try to lose weight without having to risk gaining it all back, then this video is for you. Hi, my name is Clara. I'm a sport and exercise psychologist and a fitness coach, and I help my clients develop much more sustainable ways to keep up with their health behaviors, which is a fancy way of saying their eating and their training goals, without them having to establish or develop very rigid and toxic discipline routines and relationship with health, with food, with their body, and with exercise. And in this video, I'm going to show you exactly why you've not been able to maintain the weight that you have lost in the past and the lead up to the summer, and what to do differently this year so that the cycle doesn't repeat itself again. Now, the main issue with losing weight for the summer isn't that losing weight for the summer, it's the fact that the way that we try to approach weight loss for the summer is very short, it's very intense, and often it is far too much. The expectations that most fitness coaches place on their clients in supporting them and moving towards weight loss for the summer are often things that the clients from the outset know they're not going to be able to sustain long term. Granted, you might be able to, for the sake of a holiday, train 5 days a week for 8 weeks. You might be able to stick to your calorie targets and be super rigid with your eating. You might be able to say no to social events because you're trying to lose weight for this particular holiday, but that does not teach you a single skill that's going to enable you to go away on holiday and not end up feeling so hungry and so depleted that you eat everything in sight, you feel fucking disgusting as a result of that, and then you end up essentially feeling like you've undone all of your results. That makes you want to binge even more, that makes you feel even more ashamed of yourself, and that makes you never want to step foot in the gym again for another 3 months when you come back from your holiday, meaning that by the time autumn comes around, certainly this time next year comes around, you feel like you're back to square one, if not further behind. And I don't know how many times you've done this already, but I can tell you that once is one time too many. Now, I'm not going to critique a short-term dieting phase because I think that it's got a time and a place. And I'm not anti-fat loss, I'm just anti-fat loss when it's done at all costs and when no other self-regulation tools have been taught in relation to or in tandem with that intentional fat loss. Because the thing is, you probably want to lose weight because you don't feel good enough in yourself and you think that losing weight is going to help you feel better. However, if you lose weight and your feeling of self-worth is dependent upon that weight loss and is dependent upon you going to the gym 5 times a week, is dependent upon you tracking all of your food, the minute that you no longer have those scaffolds in place, your sense of self-esteem and self-worth is going to go out the window. So when you lose that weight, when you've achieved that thing, because you've only built a sense of self-worth and self-esteem that is dependent on you doing all of those things, the minute that you've achieved the goal because it was so hard and unsustainable to begin with, you stop doing the things, you realize that your self-worth starts to go down. You think that it's because you're not training and because you're not eating the way that you were before. So you grip and you try to hold on to doing those things again, but because they were unsustainable to begin with, the longer time goes on, the harder it becomes to keep those things up. And because you don't feel good enough, and that hasn't been addressed at any point within this transformation, within this weight loss journey, what that means is that eventually you're going to be confronted with the reality that you're consistently falling short on these goals that you had established for yourself. And because for anybody who doesn't feel good enough, recognizing that we're not meeting a standard is incredibly difficult, can evoke so much shame. Eventually you're going to get to a point in which you're going to press the fuck it button, because when we press the fuck it button and we pretend that we don't have any goals and we pretend that we don't care, essentially we are ridding ourselves of that goal that was creating the comparison and like the source of shame to begin with. That's why you end up pressing the fuck it button, because you didn't feel good enough when you set yourself the goal, and in working towards that intentional weight loss, you only made your sense of self-worth dependent on that final outcome, which meant that the minute that anything changed, the minute that any factors that contributed to that last outcome changed, you went back to feeling not good enough. And when we don't feel good enough for too long, we go, I don't like this feeling, because who does? And we press the fuck it button and we burn off all our goals, and then we burn out and we go back to square one and we have to try again. And then we burn out, we feel like we don't have any capacity to do anything at all. We feel like it's too much of a task to re-engage with health and fitness and training, because the expectations and the standards that we'd set for ourselves, all that a coach had set for us, had been far too much, had been massively exceeding our current capacity, that just the thought of it feels like too much. So essentially, instead of doing something, we would prefer to do nothing until enough time has gone by that A, we feel utterly disgusted in ourselves, and or B, enough time has gone by that we kind of forget how difficult it was. We forget the trauma of having to go through the cycle a million times, and we go at it again. And I talk all the time about how these extreme 8 to 12 week fat loss programs contribute to this all or nothing mindset, because essentially what they do is establish a standard or a gold standard of what we should be doing in order to be able to move towards intentional weight loss. But those standards have to be met at such a rigid level, and the expectation is so rigid that anything below that feels like it's not good enough, and yet meeting that expectation consistently is basically impossible because you end up burning out. And when you burn out, you feel like a failure. Again, that feeling of not being good enough is there to welcome you with a fucking punch to the face. And the cycle continues to evolve, because if you don't feel like you can meet that standard, you're not even going to bother trying, because why would you if it's going to make you feel not good enough? And I've lost count of the number of clients that I've worked with in my capacity as a coach and as a psychologist who've come to me having worked already with like 2 or 3 fitness coaches, having completed multiple rounds of summer shred programs, get lean for the winter programs, having done this shit over and over, and every single time it's the same thing. It's not that the client doesn't have any willpower, and it's not that they just decide that they're going to binge and ruin their results when they go on holiday or when they've achieved them. It's just that in the setup it was never going to be sustainable, and because in the setup that client didn't feel good enough to begin with, and that feeling of not being good enough was not addressed at any point throughout that time, because fitness coaches are not psychologists, it means that they get to the result, they only feel good enough when all of that huge list of unsustainable conditions are met. And then the minute that the wheels start to fall off the bandwagon, they feel like crap again. And when they feel like crap, they press the fuck out button. My clients come to me genuinely convinced that they are a failure, that they're lacking in willpower, that they're lacking in self-control and self-discipline, when it's blatantly obvious to me that what they're lacking in is in self-worth and in self-esteem. And what they're struggling with, and the thing that keeps them eating and that keeps them putting the gym off, is the fact that they're so stressed by the fact that they feel like such a failure that they feel completely incapacitated and unable to do anything about it. And that's a problem, but that's why they come to work with me, because that's a problem that I can help them address, unlike other fitness coaches. It's the beauty of working with a psychologist who's also a fitness coach. I can do both things at the same time, and I can do them far more compassionately, and it's part of my legal requirement to make sure that what I do is actually sustainable. So when a client who's been tangled up in that all or nothing cycle with weight loss, weight gain over and over comes to me, the first thing that we do is understand what is contributing to that pattern, how it is that that cycle continues to evolve, and then we start working on their self-esteem. And yeah, it is a lot harder to work on your internal self-esteem than it is to simply try to lose weight in an attempt to chase that feeling of feeling good enough simply based on external factors. I'm not saying that weight loss does not contribute to self-esteem. I'm just saying that weight loss in the absence of self-esteem is in vain. It's not going to help you feel better about yourself unless you address what's within. And the two things can happen in tandem, but I genuinely believe that cultivating a more self-compassionate approach towards ourselves, learning how to be less critical of ourselves when we do slip up, when we do fuck up, learning how to not be so harsh with ourselves when we recognize that our capacities and our abilities to do the health and fitness things are maybe not that gold standard that we think that they should be, or that fitness influencers and like fitness coaches have told us that they should be. And we learn to contend with all of that, it becomes significantly easier to genuinely be consistent. And what that means too is that if you have been doing, an 8 to 12 week fat loss phase, in cultivating self-compassion, in cultivating self-esteem, in cultivating a sense of self-worth inherent to you throughout that process, and in learning how to calibrate and be more psychologically flexible throughout that process, when you do say go away on holiday and take 2 weeks off the gym, you're not just starved, so deprived that you end up eating more than you maybe anticipated. What it also means is that in eating perhaps more or eating differently than you ordinarily do, you don't feel guilty, you don't feel shame, you don't feel like a fucking piece of shit, and you don't end up pressing the fucker button as a result of that, because that feeling is so intolerable. And if those feelings do emerge when you have been working with me, you will know exactly what to do with them, because again, learning how to contend with distress, learning how to contend with discomfort is a huge part of the work that I do with my clients in breaking these patterns. I know this video is a bit more showy than I normally am, but I just get so passionate and so angry and upset and frustrated when I see clients who have been strung along and have been told that all they have to do is try harder, when the reality is that they don't choose to gain weight that they had worked so hard to lose. Everybody wants to be able to maintain that, and nobody can, because no other coach is addressing the root cause of the black and white all or nothing thinking pattern to begin with, which is the not feeling good enough when you start that weight loss phase at its starting point. And like I said, I'm not anti-intentional weight loss. I support my clients with intentional weight loss too, but I do it in such a profoundly different way that what that means is that when they then achieve a goal that was important to them, they don't feel threatened by any changes to their routine. It doesn't send them spiraling, and they certainly do not end up rebounding completely the other way around, because they know exactly how to contend with the feelings of shame and guilt that might arise in relation to eating differently, but they also know they're good enough no matter what. And people who feel good enough within themselves do not binge. People who feel good enough within themselves do not sabotage themselves deliberately, intentionally, over and over and over. They know what to do. They know how to do the kind thing, and the kind thing is never to keep going. The kind thing is never to completely put off exercise if that's something that's important to you. The kind thing is never to go the other way and over-exercise or over-restrict. The kind thing is to learn how to calibrate that based on your needs, but do that sustainably and consistently for the rest of your life. I know it doesn't sound as sexy as drop 10 kilos in 10 weeks, but genuinely, if that's something that is important to you, then make sure to head into the description and click the link in there and apply to work with me, because that's exactly what I'll help you do. And if you're not ready to commit to that just yet, that's okay. I do have another link in the description where you can download my free self-sabotage stopper, which is essentially a 5-minute step-by-step process to make sure that you can catch moments when which your hand is hovering over the fuck it button and make sure you don't end up pressing it. And if you do end up pressing the fuck it button, the tools in there will also help you make sure that you don't spiral. As always, thank you so much for watching the video. If you did find it helpful and interesting, make sure that you like it, make sure to subscribe to my channel, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.